And you see her as she's looking at you from afar, and you're ordering another shot at the bar. And you know she's got that bite, and you know she sings with no pride. But tonight, let's see what she's got tonight. So I say hello there. Hey, how you doing? Well, hello there. Hey, how are you? I said hello there. I'm standing here in front, entertaining you. It's true. Let's have some fun tonight. 'Cause Angie's got the mind. And I say hello there. Hey, how are you? Let's have some fun too. Thank you. Thank you.
Ambient noise, yeah.
So now you're grabbing some band lab clips.
Now for me, that would also be something where I would use like volume automation and like bring that from the bottom, like bring it in and then bring it back out. Kind of.
And these are the kinds of sounds you can stretch. With this AI, like stretching it actually can be cool.
Oh, that was perfect for the interlude too.
Ends it right in the
I
right
didn't
spot.
even notice 40. I didn't even realize the texture faded out at the interlude until it happened. I'm like, wait a minute.
Sometimes you just, it was just meant to be that way.
Oh, and this episode
Not
was
every time,
meant to be.
but sometimes.
This is an episode that was meant
Absolutely.
to be. And actually, Angie has
Rhythm's
the
gonna
mic
get you.
on this. Angie has the mic on this one because she's the one that actually instigated it a little bit. She came at me with this video from David Bennett. You remember that channel, Piano?
Oh yeah.
And she was talking about rhythm, and this particular video gives a great example of like 18 rhythms that you should know, and it got me thinking. Plus, you sent a second video because you like bossa nova. So I was like,
Oh, yeah.
okay,
Oh, yeah.
I can see a theme going on here.
I see where this is going. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one that I really wanted to go down this rabbit hole because when it comes to different rhythmic styles, like all those styles that are in your Casio, it's good to get familiar with them. It's good to get comfortable with the different rhythm styles that are traditional.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and each will inspire something different. So that's one of the things I like about it is, to go start something, I'll just, fire up a rhythm and just play something along to it, and it'll come up differently depending on what rhythm I choose to put with it.
Yeah, well, it'll definitely help you to change your style. If you're trying to get out, if you're caught in a box playing one style, this is a good way to really spread your wings.
Break out of the box. That's one way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, let's take a look and see what we got lined up here. I think you're gonna like this lineup, Glenn.
I think so too.
So,
I like it already.
as I mentioned, this was the video that got it all started with Ange. 18 rhythms you should know, and what I really liked about this, for those who are not like big on metronomes, and they tend to shy away from them, this really does help you to appreciate the metronome. The way David shows this, you get the visual display along with the audio example, and things really start to click in.
Yeah, exactly. And even just that one, seeing it on screen like that, and you try to tap that out when you see something like that, like, on the one, the and of two, and the four. Like if you were to try to tap that rhythm out, you'll see that it's, one on, two off, one on, two off, one on, one off, and then you're back. So it's like when you get used to that pattern, you can get that, boom ba da, boom da da, boom da, boom da da, boom da da, boom da. Once you start getting into that kind of a rhythm, that'll make it easier. And seeing it in writing next to the counting helps a lot too. Being able to
Yeah.
try to translate the two back and forth.
Yeah, I really like seeing the color coding, the emphasis on the ands, because that's one of the things where, like, I I've always had a tricky time with where the ands fall and whether they're accented. Like that blue and is different than those gray ands.
Mhm.
There's an accent there.
Yeah, in this case, there's a note there, and all of the gray ones are no notes. So like you're hitting on the one, and then you're hitting on the and of two, and then you're hitting on the four, but everything else is off.
You hear that, everyone? Glenn says no notes.
No notes in the middle.
No notes for you.
That's right.
So after we get introduced to these 18 rhythms that you should be familiar with, we're gonna take a look at one that Glenn really likes, and
Yes.
this one comes from Paul Davies. Awesome to get him back on for a topic, and he's gonna help us to understand the bossa nova. 'Cause
Yeah, and this is such a
Glenn
good
said
one.
so.
So key, and the way they go over it and the way they get into it and how they get into some interesting chord extensions, but also just the very basics of it is such a good starting point for a lot of people, just to be able to get into something where you can accompany yourself with a little rhythm thing. And if you have a looper, even better. You can just do a very simple little loop, get you started, and then as it comes back around, you just start playing along to it, and you'll find it's infectious and a lot of fun.
Yeah, or those arranger keyboards we looked at a couple weeks back. Those
Oh yeah.
are chock full of these beats, and bossa nova is always in there.
Always. It has to be at least one. Sometimes there's a bossa nova 1 and a bossa nova 2.
Yeah. So Glenn got to pick the bossa nova for his rhythm, and I decided to go with the waltz.
Nice. There you go.
That's one that I'd like to get better at. It's one that I've always appreciated. It's a great one for dance, and uh, another channel that I'm glad to bring back, Piano TV, awesome piano channel, and she's going to help us to understand what is a waltz and how that works.
Yep. Very much a rhythm thing as well. Once you're locked into what it feels like, then you'll recognize it when you hear it out in the wild for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been wanting to dive into the waltz rabbit hole for a long time.
Yep. Good stuff. It always makes me think of Tom and Jerry for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Then we're gonna switch it up a little bit. Adam Neely, one of the three Adams we have in our channel, and great musical resource. He always asks inquisitive questions about music that always get my brain going. And for this one, he's going to talk about why classical musicians feel rhythm a little differently than other types of musicians.
Nice.
And I found that curious because, rhythm is big in classical, but it is different. You're thinking different layers of percussive instruments, which is kind of what I wanted the second half of tonight to like look at is
Mhm.
your non-traditional percussive instruments. They're not all just, you know, cymbals and snares. There's a lot of different instruments that fall under percussive.
Yeah, most definitely. And different ones, you know, they'll accent things differently depending on what you're trying to do. And some of them, you know, have a pitch to them that's important. So you have to be in the right key. You know, if you're playing steel drum, for example, you can't just be whacking away at it. You know, you have to actually be hitting the right notes. Where other, you know, other percussive instruments, you might just be, you know, it might just be like the doo or the doo. You know, it doesn't really matter what note it is, but it's just a matter that you have two options, and how you go back and forth can define the rhythm that you're actually doing.
Well, and like in the case of like xylophones, it's
Mhm.
kind of like a piano meets a drum.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Good
So
stuff.
hopefully that'll help clear up my classical musician percussive wall.
All right. And to me, it's
And
also kind of like whether we're talking classical or orchestral in terms of like the arranging, because classical could just be, you know, just a piano or, you know, just violins or whatever. Whereas if it's an orchestra, we're talking about setting everything up and how it all fits together.
yeah, and these last two videos are going to kind of give some different examples of weird percussive instruments. This one is going to be a lot of fun.
Mhm.
The 29 weirdest musical instruments you won't believe exist, and
Nice.
there's some in here that blew my mind. I mean, I thought I was familiar with most instruments out there, but you're going to see a whole bunch of new ones.
Most is a tough call because you know, there could be people making instruments in their backyard that I've never seen anything like that. Like there's the you remember Pipe Guy? He was a guy who had
Yeah.
basically using, you know, pipes and whacking them with sandals, and just had like the coolest sound, and he would play that as an instrument playing out. And it's just a bunch of hollow pipes, so it's not a big deal. Like, you know, there's no power to it or anything like that. And you know, he had a kick drum going, so you could just keep, you know, keep time with that, and then just play on it. It was definitely a cool thing. But yes,
Yeah.
there are tons of instruments out there. And looking at the I don't know about most popular, but maybe most used, or the most I guess most popular, you know, instruments that are used out there. But you know, it's also cool to get into the ones that are kind of off the beaten path, the ones that there's only a few of this, or you know, somebody made their own, you know, they combined a couple of other things together because they loved, you know, a bass and a guitar, so they put bass strings on a guitar or guitar strings on a bass to, you know, make a hybrid instrument kind of thing.
You got chocolate in my peanut butter.
Exactly. Perfect together.
So this one's going to be coming from Lazy Creatives,
Mhm.
Creativist, Freshy channel, new one that came across.
Nice.
And this is also a new one, and this one is really fun. Like I actually watched it twice just to soak up some of his percussive knowledge. You're going to be surprised at how well he understands percussive instruments as he goes through this exercise of ranking every percussion instrument from hardest to easiest.
I was gonna
And
say I like the tier system already, the way he's got it laid out. Yeah.
yeah, and as he's like he kind of jumps around a little bit, but as he's laying them out, and he does have a great understanding of the instrument itself and the complexity of it in, you know, in orchestration and things like that. A lot of these instruments are like orchestral type instruments,
Hmm.
but there's a few surprises in there too.
Indeed. Even the name Moto Grader is very ominous sounding.
Yeah, oh yeah, there's some in there that I'm like, I want one of those.
Hmm. Indeed.
Surprisingly, he started out with 69 instruments and he forgot the timpani. And
Oh.
he didn't realize it until as he was going through the list, and he had to add that 70th instrument because you can't ignore the timpani.
No, it's got to be there when you're going into this category for sure.
Yeah, and this one's going to be coming from EMC Productions, and another freshie for us.
Hmm. All right.
That's going to be a fun one.
Getting
But
some good ones.
to get started, we're going to go over to David Bennett's piano, and love this channel.
Mhm.
Been checking it out since the beginning. This was one of the first channels that I think you threw at me.
I think so. Yeah. I think that's possible.
Yeah, this one and Nari Soul, they kind of came at me at the same time.
Yeah. And those are the kinds of things that I would definitely send your way.
Yeah, this one comes from at David Bennett Piano, pianist and music lover creating educational music videos about all things interesting.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And for this one, we're going to take a look at these 18 rhythms that you should know. And he's not lying. Like, these are ones you should get familiar with. They will expand your musical palette.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this one, we're gonna do like Howard Cosell. We're gonna comment like sportscasters. Move this one out and move this one.
This video was
over.
made possible by HD Piano. Learn the best songs on piano at hdpiano.com. Being able to refer to certain common rhythms by name is really valuable when communicating with fellow musicians. So today we're going to look at 18 different rhythms, starting with the son clave.
Now, there's some new ones in here.
A clave is a concept from Afro-Cuban music, where there's effectively a master rhythm, a key rhythm, acting as a template on top of which all of the other rhythmic parts will be built. And son clave is one of the most common types of clave, and it sounds like this. And here are a couple of songs putting son clave to work. This is actually a 3-2 son clave because it has 3 notes in the first bar and 2 notes in the second bar, but you can flip it to get the 2-3 son clave, which sounds like this. And here are some examples of songs using a 2-3 son clave. Now, son clave is effectively a Latin music concept, but this rhythm also features in North American and European music as well, but here it's called the Bo Diddley beat, because it was used by Bo Diddley in his song, Bo Diddley. Bo Diddley effectively popularised the rhythm in the 1950s, and then many other songs have gone on to use this rhythm in their music.
You know my love will not fade away. Oh, well, you know my love will not fade away. He talked and talked, and I heard him say that she had. Well, I guess it would be nice if I could.
So this rhythm can either be called a 3-2 son clave or the Bo Diddley beat. But if we take just the first bar of this rhythm, we actually get another common rhythm called a tresillo. Tresillo is Spanish for triplet, but this isn't a triplet rhythm. That's a rhythm we'll talk about later. Although this is very similar to a triplet rhythm, and we can see that it still has 3 almost evenly spaced beats in it. You can think about this rhythm as long, long, short, or 3-3-2 when we consider the 8 eighth notes of the bar and how they've been divided. And this rhythm, this tresillo rhythm, was particularly common in 2010s pop music.
By the water, she's gone astray.
Just not right for you. And you gotta go and get angry at all of my honesty.
Come on, turn the radio on. It's Friday night and I won't be long. Gotta do my.
What would I do without your smart mouth drawing me in and you?
A song that you can effectively think of as having a tresillo rhythm is Clocks by Coldplay. Here, the rhythm is effectively constant eighth notes, but because of the accents falling on this beat, and this beat, due to where the arpeggio is resetting, we wind up with that 3-3-2 long, long, short pattern of traceo.
Lights go out and I can't be saved. Tides that I tried to swim against.
So a moment ago we were talking about sonclave, but sonclave isn't the only type of clave. Another very common type of clave.
Now, Glenn, as a bassist,
Mhm.
have you used those last two in
Oh, yeah.
in anything you?
Oh yeah, I mean, basically they come up with, as you're hearing somebody chunk out a rhythm, for example, like a guitarist might be doing, chunk chunka 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 chunka, and so you're gonna follow that rhythm, and it's just you're gonna fall into it. I wouldn't necessarily have identified it as a clave this or or the 2-3 or the 3-2, depending on which one it is. Makes a lot of sense the way it's split up that way. It also depends if you're trying to break it up into 16th notes, as it is on this one.
Well,
with the
and it's
whole
funny.
pattern.
I have heard it, like just from those examples. I've heard it used, but now I know the name.
Yep, and it's one that I was saying. It's one of Jeff's favorites. So like that's the kind of thing that you'll see Jeff pull out all the time. My cousin Jeff, when we're out at rehearsal, he'll use it on. He'll jump over to the congas and do a quick rhythm and get that kind of in his head. Or we'll just pick something, like sometimes we'll just pick the rhythms, like you were saying, that are built into the keyboards and use that as a jumping off point. Make that a starting point and then see what falls into that, and we'll just take that drum part out later and put in real drums, to the whatever we came up with to go around it.
Now
It's a good way to get started.
the sound that they're using there to for these examples, it's like a wooden block, right?
Yeah, that's
Is
basically that. That was what you would call the clave,
that's a
really.
that's a that's a clave, right? That's what I always thought, like clave is that sound, which is the default for metronomes.
Right,
That,
and that's the thing is, I like that one as a metronome. Some metronomes, it is kind of a weirder sound. I do prefer that sound. I prefer the clave as my metronome.
yeah, that's a lot easier than when it defaults to some of those like horrendous noises.
Yeah, sometimes it's a ding or a click or whatever. There's some obnoxious ones for sure, but that's where you just get that nice little tick, basically like a tick of a wood block is essentially what you get. But it's two different wood blocks, so that you get that three that are steady and then the one that's louder or higher to accent.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it makes it easy to identify the accents with that
exactly.
sound. Yeah.
That's what I like about it for sure.
Oh, so now we're gonna rumba.
Rumba, nice.
Is the rumba clave. Rumba clave is this rhythm, which is actually quite similar to the sonclave rhythm. The only difference between
it's got
sonclave
like a
and
little.
rumba clave is that this beat happens 1/8 note later in rumba clave. Also, just like with
Feels like it's
sonclave,
hanging.
we can have the 3-2 variation where we have 3 beats in the first bar and 2 beats in the second bar, or we can have the opposite of that, a 2-3 rumba clave. Now, although today clave is associated with Latin American and Cuban music, these rhythmic ideas ultimately originate from Africa, from sub-Saharan Africa. Which takes us on to our next rhythm today, the standard African bell pattern, or what's sometimes called the bembe pattern. Now, in a similar way to how the claves traditionally were played on the clave instrument to effectively pin down the rhythm of the music, the standard African bell pattern, the bembe pattern, would have been played on a bell or a similar instrument to, once again, keep the rhythm tied down, keep this consistent rhythm going. Although it's sometimes thought of as being in 6/8 or even 4/4 time, 12/8 is the typical way to play and think about this rhythm. Now, to Western listeners, 12/8 probably reminds them of a shuffle groove. And in fact, this standard African bell pattern is most likely where American music got its classic shuffle, the rhythm that's at the heart of jazz and blues and later rock music as well. Shuffles can come in different shapes and sizes, but they're effectively a rhythm in 12/8 where we are emphasizing the first and third eighth note of each beat. As with anything in 12/8, you can also conceptualize this as being in 4/4, but with triplets on every beat of the bar. Although shuffles are most closely associated with blues and jazz, you can also find them in many different pop and rock songs.
I'm ready.
Yeah, but I got the beard.
No, I don't even know your name. It will not
Stevie.
Understanding how to read rhythm, how to read sheet music, can be quite challenging, which is why in this video I've also shown other ways to understand the rhythm beyond just notation. And this is the same philosophy shared by HD Piano, today's sponsor, who are a fantastic resource for learning how to play the piano. HD Piano offers really easy to follow tutorials on loads of classic songs, and they never use notation, they never use sheet music. If you've never played piano before, then I highly recommend trying HD Piano out by following the link down below.
I've tried that
A
approach.
shuffle is effectively
learning
a
tunes.
type of swing.
It's effective.
Speaking broadly,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
swing is any time that the eighth notes of the music are not evenly spaced, but instead the first one is longer than the second one.
Now this is one I like.
But we can actually get a few different types of swing rhythm, and they're best described using what we call swing ratios, where we describe the ratio between the long and the short eighth note. The swing ratio we have on screen right now is what we would describe as 3:1, because the long note is 3 times as long as the short note. A shuffle is a 2:1 swing ratio, because the first note is twice as long as the second note. It's important to remember though that when musicians actually swing, when they play swung rhythms, they're not thinking this consciously about how much the rhythm is swinging, and in practice the amount that the rhythm is swinging will vary and will not be necessarily precise. So swing is when the first of the two notes in the rhythm is long and the second one is short. But we could have a rhythm that was the opposite of this. We could have the short note first and then the long one. And this is what's called a Scotch snap, or can also be called the Lombard rhythm. The name Scotch snap comes from its use in traditional Scottish music. And the Lombard name is more associated with Baroque music. For example, this piece here by Henry Purcell. But we can also hear this rhythm in modern music as well, and as Adam Neely points out in his great video on the topic, there's loads of R&B and hip-hop music at the moment using this Lombard Scotch snap rhythm.
Can I tell you something just between you and me?
If I'm shining, everybody gonna shine. I was born like this, don't even gotta try.
I see it, I like it, I want it, I got it.
For our next rhythm, let's go back to Latin America and talk about the Bossa Nova. Bossa Nova is a Brazilian style of music that emerged in the 50s and 60s. It makes use of various syncopated rhythms, but there's one particular rhythm that you can consider the archetypal Bossa Nova rhythm, and it's this. I like to think of it as 3-3-4-3-3. Although you won't find it in every bossa nova, you can often hear this rhythm played on the snare in bossa nova songs.
Oh, I like it with the guitar.
And occasionally you can also hear bossa nova influencing other music. For example, we can very clearly hear a bossa nova beat on Break On Through by The Doors.
That's why Glenn likes it so much.
Exactly.
This rhythm is known as the Charleston. The Charleston was originally a song written for the Charleston dance, which was popularized by the Broadway musical comedy Running Wild. The Charleston song prominently features this rhythm. It's effectively the first two notes of a traceo rhythm or a conclave rhythm. A waltz is a very common 3/4 rhythm. A simple
and
pattern
this
of
is why I
3
like
beats,
the waltz.
1 strong and 2 weak, producing a sort of pa 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 rhythm. Waltzes were originally written, of course, for dancing to, but soon enough composers started using the style and sound of a waltz for music that wasn't actually intended to be danced to. For example, Chopin used the waltz as the foundation of many of his pieces, but they were never written to be danced to.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
The waltz has also never quite gone out of style. Although less common today, we can find many examples of the waltz rhythm, that 3/4 pa pa rhythm, in popular music.
She appears composed, so she is, I suppose.
RBGs. Would you be so fun that RBGs?
All of Kintyre, oh, mist rolling in fog.
Next, we have what we could call the 5/4 clave. This is a common rhythm that you can use when playing in the odd time signature 5/4. You'll notice that even though we're in 5/4 and we have 5 quarter notes in this bar, this clave, this rhythm, only features 4 notes, 2 long and 2 short. This is a popular rhythm to use to lock into that 5/4 sound. Perhaps the most famous example of this clave, this rhythm, is the Mission Impossible theme.
Oh, wow. That's what this one's using.
Now earlier I mentioned triplets. Triplets are when we squeeze 3 notes into the space that there would usually only be 2 notes. Sometimes people remember the sound of triplets by going triplet, triplet for the 3 hits. Triplets are a form of what we call tuplets. A tuplet is just any time that we have to fit a different number of notes into a space from what would usually go there in the particular meter that we're in. So you could have quintuplets or septuplets. When we're
Oh
using
my
tuplets,
God,
for example
that's
triplets,
progressive.
it means we could effectively have 2 different meters happening on top of each other at the same time, 2 different rhythmic schemes, giving us what we could call a polyrhythm. For example, a triplet, as I said a second ago, is when we fit 3 notes in the space where we would usually have 2. But what if we had both at the same time? One part was playing the 3, the triplet, and one part was playing the 2. Well, we would wind up with a 3/2 polyrhythm. This particular polyrhythm of 3/2 can be referred to as a hemiola, but it can also be referred to as nice cup of tea, because nice cup of tea gives us the sound of the composite rhythm of the 3/2. Nice cup of tea, nice cup of tea, nice cup of tea, nice cup of tea.
That's
A
a
great
good way
example
to
of this
remember it.
nice cup of tea hemiola rhythm is in Daydreaming by Radiohead. The right hand of the piano is playing 3 notes, triplets, over the left hand of the piano, which is playing 2 notes. Now with polyrhythms, we could technically have any polyrhythm of any 2 numbers, 5/4, 7/11, but in practice there's only really 2 common ones that you see used. We've had 3/2, which is the first common one, nice cup of tea, and the other common one is 4/3. Which we could name with the helpful phrase, pass the goddamn butter, because that phrase naturally gives us the composite rhythm of that 4/3. Pass the goddamn butter, pass the goddamn butter. A great example of this pass the goddamn butter 4/3 polyrhythm in action is the song Fake Empire by The National. In this song we can see that the left hand is playing 3 beats for every 4 beats that the right hand plays.
Now with my buddy Mike, it was actually chop the goddamn lettuce, but same idea, and it's what got it helps you to get where you can have it. If you can get good at going back and forth and doing like the 3 side on one hand and the 2 side on the other hand, and then switch it back, so you're like, and do it the other way. And if you can get good at going back and forth between those two, that'll really help you to, if you're trying to get good, hand independence for drum beats, percussion, that sort of thing. Definitely helps with that.
This is great advice for these more complex rhythms.
Mm-hmm. Here we go.
I like seeing it with the piano in action.
Yeah, definitely.
As an English person, this next rhythm is what I would refer to as the football clap or the England chant. And anybody in England knows that what you're meant to do on the last 2 hits of that rhythm is say, England. Now, first of all, I'm really intrigued to know whether anybody from other countries thinks of this rhythm to do with football, or if they know it in a different connotation, perhaps different sport, different setting, I don't know. There are a few songs that have used it, the oldest being Let's Go by the Rooters.
Oh, and Tony Basil. Oh, Mick.
And we can hear it in the Self-Preservation Society from the Italian Job. And our final rhythm today is what we can call shave and a haircut 2 bits. The 2 bits
You're gonna
here,
have to
by the
grow
way, is
some hair
referring
now,
to slang
Glenn.
for a quarter in the US. So it's saying a shave and a haircut.
I'll do the
costs
shave,
a
you do the
quarter.
haircut.
It's not particularly clear where this rhythm came from, how it became popular, but there are recorded occurrences of it as early as 1899. What's really interesting about this rhythm, though, is we can feel the rhythmic call and response. Even if it's just played rhythmically like this, we know that it needs those 2 bits to resolve the rhythm, otherwise it's unsatisfying. So, of course, the classic musician's joke is to give you shave and a haircut, but not give you the 2 bits, as we can hear, for example, at the end of this track by Dexter Gordon. So that is 18 rhythms that you should know the names of. The thing is, with rhythms, unlike chords or scales, not every rhythm has a recognised name. In fact, I would say most rhythms don't have a recognised name. The ones that do have a particular prevalence or history that makes it useful to be able to refer to them by a consistent name. So if you can think of any other rhythms that have an established name, do let me know in the comments down below.
And the one Darian mentioned there a minute ago with the Boots and Cats, that's always a good one. Boots and Cats.
Yeah. And Rolo is gonna make a Pass the Goddamn Butter song.
Nice. Perfect.
You let me know when that's out.
Absolutely. Some good rhythms there. And again, it's not as important that you know and memorize the names of all of them. It's more familiarizing with them, seeing where you recognizing them, where you recognize them in the world, in the wild, and being able to utilize them to come up with something, because some of those will definitely inspire different things than you might have come up with in just a standard 4/4 kind of time.
Well, and as we've noticed, like I recognize a lot of those rhythms from things that I've heard, but now I can identify them. Like
Yep.
knowing the term for the rhythm makes me feel good.
Absolutely. And that's where, again, with my coming back to my cousin Jeff, it's like when he's like, oh yeah, it's a song clave or a 3/2 clave or a 2/3 or whatever. When he starts coming up with those, those phrases as he hits it, and as I hear it, I start to internalize it, and we start to churn along and do a song in that kind of a rhythm structure. But knowing, how to communicate with them, where he could just say, oh, it's a 3/2 clave, and have me be able to, okay, so we're looking for a boom, 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 make sure we get things timed out the way we need to, so that it all locks together.
And what I found interesting there is like some of them they were given names based on where they came in, like that rhythm from the like 20s that was based off of a song from, what did they say, a movie, the Charleston,
Charleston, sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like some of the rhythms are defined out of the uniqueness of this new rhythm pattern, and it's interesting to think that there are still some rhythmic patterns out there yet to be discovered.
Sure.
You'd
And some of
think
them,
that they were all done by now, but
well,
think out the box.
yeah, that's the thing is there's only so many ways to break up a measure, but at the same time, you can do things off time. Like we're talking about, septuplets and octuplets, and we're doing odd numbers of tuplets into squeezing those into where two notes would be. So you could have 7 notes where 2 should be, and then 2. So you're ending up with 9 notes in the measure, even though it's technically only 4. So it could still be 4/4 time, but you're throwing in this tuplet there to get a whole bunch of notes in there.
And depending what instruments you're using and how you're arranging, like we saw some examples there where you saw multiple drummers,
Mhm.
one be on a congo and conga, and the other be on like bongos. And when you can spread out those hits across different percussions like that, it can create a unique sound. The Latin world is filled with that kind of experimenting.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's all how the rhythms interact with each other as well. Like you were saying, there's the 4/3. You could just be sitting there doing a basic 3 pattern and not thinking about anything else. And somebody else comes along and starts putting a 4 over that 3. And as long as you can hold your 3 where it should be, and as long as you guys are, coming back together on that first note each time, he's doing 4, you're doing 3. So you're doing completely different things, but they sound like they're locked together because of the way you have the timing worked out.
Yeah, it's funny seeing some of those time signatures. I would have never, like, those would not be my 5/4, 12/8. These are not my go-tos, but
Mhm.
seeing them this way, soaking them in, makes me feel like those time signatures are not as intimidating as I once thought.
Yeah, and a great way to do it is to watch a video like that while you're sitting at your instrument, or even if you don't have an instrument in front of you, just tapping it out on your legs. Like when they start, showing a pattern, if it's one of the bossa nova patterns or a waltz or whatever, just kind of hammer it out, with your hands so that you're feeling the timing. You're actually getting involved with the timing. And if you're again a piano player, do it at the piano. So you can just do a C chord or whatever. You can just figure something out to be able to get that percussion into your hands, get that timing kind of worked in.
Well, that's why I like seeing some of those examples implemented with piano, because it
Mhm.
clicks in instantly for me. Like, oh, that's how I can accomplish that kind of bounce.
Yep, exactly. And even especially a bounce on piano, doing like if you're doing just a triad, a root, a third, and a fifth. If you bounce with the root first, and then you hit the 3 and the 5, so you're doing
Yep.
like a. So you can start there, and then you can kind of work from there. And then if you bounce from that root to the 5 under, and all of a sudden you got something that's kind of already starting to sound like something when all you're doing is a root, a 3, and a 5, and just kind of bouncing it back and forth and breaking the chord up.
I can make myself a soundtrack like Peter Griffin, riding on a bus, riding on a bus.
Exactly.
That was very helpful, David, for
Mhm.
getting us going with this topic tonight. I learned several new things, not just the terms, but
Mhm.
that I think I can play in some of these time signatures.
Absolutely. And like you said, not as intimidating as they seemed before, because now it's just, getting a comfort level of, that there are these things. There's not that many of them, but once you start to recognize them and be able to categorize them, it makes it easier to have, to communicate with people about that style.
Yeah, and I like to see a little background history on where some of these came from.
Mhm.
Maybe in a future episode, we'll do a little historical dive into the first time somebody
Sure.
played this way.
Definitely. Now we do have two dives into 2 of the patterns that we just talked about there. We have one for the bossa nova, and we have one for the waltz.
Yes, now we're going to get a little deeper into our picks. Glenn picked Bossa Nova.
Yep.
I went with the Waltz.
Oh yeah. Excellent choice.
And thank you at David Bennett Piano. Awesome to get him back in.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah. And now for another big gun on YouTube, like one of your recommended channels, David Bennett, and Paul David.
This one, Paul David. Yep.
We just came from David Bennett.
We did.
And he's at Paul David's. He's got the @ name.
Mm-hmm. and lots of great content there for sure. I mean, whether it comes to certain things, one thing I really liked was something like one of his videos I can recommend highly is one about funk and just trying to put together funk from scratch, basically. And in a very, very, step-by-step process over a very short period of time, he just, shows you the basics of getting a little funk groove going, and you're off to the races. Like just a really quick video that's just very simple to get started, and he kind of layers the things together in such a way that it's not intimidating right off the start, but it can get you to where you can play something sounds very fancy very quickly.
I love he's got a whole series on epic riffs, studying the riffs of the giants.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely going to run through those.
Definitely. Most definitely.
So on this one, he teams up with at Dominic Miller Official to show us how the bossa nova works.
Yeah, this is a treat. Like to watch them kind of dive into the bossa nova and go back and forth, and kind of build up different layers or different levels, shall we say, of setting it up and just going back and forth. Doing a little soloing over it, and to show that it's not doesn't need to be intimidating. It doesn't need to be these enormous jazz chords. You can just start with little pieces, and they make it a little bit fancier. They add some things in there, and then they just show how they can just solo over top of it and make it into something really cool.
Now, would you say it's easier to play, say, with guitar bossa nova or keys?
I would say either way is fine. The one thing about it when you watch them play is watch the picking hand and the plucking hand, because you'll see that it's basically like a thumb bounce. So you'll see that it kind of would apply in either way, but you're doing like a thumb pluck, and then you're kind of pulling with the other fingers to do like an archery pull. You're like twink.
So it goes back to our night where we were looking at different styles of finger picking.
Yes, exactly. And with this one, you'll see for sure that there's the back and forth with it like that. And if you envision, and you're listening to it, envision what that would look like on a piano. And if you have, if you're sitting at a piano, play along while they're playing part of it, and you'll see like same kind of thing where you're bouncing back and forth between that root and the 5 below it. So you're basically bouncing back and forth between like a root and the 5 under while you're staying on the 3 and the 5, just to do the most basic version of what's going on there. And then you'll hear what, how it kind of builds together. And then they put other chords in there, of course, and they make it a little bit, use some extended chords, some jazz voicings, things like that. But it doesn't have to get complicated to be fun and to get a really cool sound going.
Well, this is where I'd probably appreciate that I'm a keyboardist. Finger picking styles is one of the trickier parts of playing guitar. Like you guys are lucky. The claw makes certain things easy, transposing and all that. But when it comes to the picking, and especially with the fingers, that's a technique that you need to practice to get good at. Whereas on the piano, it's kind of easy on the piano to do those same things that finger picking make difficult.
Mm-hmm. One thing for if you're trying to get, let's say, a guitar sound on the piano, like you're playing on a piano, but you want to have sort of a guitar-ish sound, just rolling the chord, like starting from low to high, is one way, because that'll come and kind of mimic slowly picking through the strings as a guitar player. So rather than just banging a chord out, you can start from low, and you can kind of roll into it, and that way it sounds more like the way a guitar would play in terms of the way it comes across. Also spreading the chord out more, where on a guitar, if you're playing a G chord, for example, you're playing 3 different Gs in that chord. So you're playing a low, a middle, and a high G with other stuff in between. So you're getting the rest of the chord, but it all spreads out a lot further because you're going across those 6 strings. So you have a good bit of range, as far as low notes and high notes. You can get over 2 octaves there just in that one claw. So that makes it useful for being able to voice a nice big lush chord with an easy claw.
Stop, drop, and roll.
Yep, the roll. Always like that. But that's just a root 3/5 and a root on top. But you can do 7 chords, make it sound fancy, dominant chord, all kinds of stuff. But first, we should see what they have to say about the bossa nova, because this is a fun one.
Yeah, let's get our bossa nova on.
Here we go.
Guitar player to learn just the basics of bossa nova.
This is Dominic Miller, guitarist and composer well known for his work with Sting. With a very impressive discography that includes some of the world's most famous guitarists, he's well versed in many different genres. How he got here? Downright impossible chord shapes that even the original guitarist tries to avoid when he plays it live.
Then I thought that's not true, but then actually it is true. Here and Amsterdam. I'm here with Paul Davids, and I'm determined to play the correct chord on Shape of My Heart.
Well, that's the short story. But today Dominic is showing me the basics of his first love, the bossa nova.
All about the touch. And once you've got the basics of bossa nova, there's very many places you can go from there. If you can understand the basics of this chord sequence, then you kind of can play any bossa nova. Before I could do anything, I'd learned how to just play simple. It's a lovely rhythm. Yeah. Those are the chords for Corcovado, otherwise known as Quiet Nights.
Nights of quiet stars, quiet chords from a guitar.
It's a great way to start bossa nova, I think.
Shall we start with just playing the first chord? Can you teach me? And then the rhythm. So
Yeah,
the
just
rhythm
like
is where it all leans on, right? The rhythm.
It's the rhythm, everything's back. You got to lay back. You know,
I'm always rushing, so this is going to be my Achilles heel.
We all rush, but the thing is just like, it's just really super laid back. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4. So keep playing that. That's it. You got the feel. That's exactly it.
Really?
So always back. Just go back. It seduces you. This kind of groove. There's nothing like it.
It's holding back secrets. That's what I like.
Yeah.
That sounds. What's happening? Okay, so we grab a D7 chord here.
Yeah.
And all we do is alternate that bass.
Yeah,
string.
just play the bass, and sometimes you like just do it really simple, so everything's on the beat. So it's like. That's one rhythm.
Okay, I got this.
And the other rhythm is push. Except the bass stays normal.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. I like that rhythm a lot.
Yeah.
And the third bossa nova rhythm that I really like is which is sort of a very staccato. So there's 3 favorite rhythms. So, but then it's just a question of mixing and matching. So I'll give you an example of kind of doing a combination of all 3. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Isn't it
absolutely.
lovely? It's a great basis for someone to improvise over and to solo over. But so if you were like let's say a blues guitarist, or you had a pentatonic kind of vocabulary, which is great, you would find yourself using that vocabulary in a completely different way. Just blow on them, but just like really laid back in a sort of in jazz time. You know what I mean? It's all about
I get it.
pentatonic.
It's just A minor pentatonic on the D.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting on the D chord. Yeah, that's cool.
Because actually, I'm thinking of that chord really as an A minor chord.
Yeah. Just let's put it in the context of the chord progression then, because we got that D9 basically, but we go to cool.
G minor, C 7th, C, F major 7th.
Okay. With that same rhythm.
Great. Great, man. That's beautiful. I mean, you can just stay in the pentatonic,
Yeah.
but if you wanted to go a little bit more serious about it, you could follow the chords.
Yeah,
But that's, I can't be bothered with that.
If
you
you,
know,
if you do it too much, it becomes too
Yeah.
technical and too robotic sometimes.
I find the best improvisers are the ones who don't think about the chords, are the ones who
Yeah.
just do it from the body, how
It's
it
more
reacts.
also it's more of a like I always say a horizontal approach versus a vertical approach. Like the horizontal approach where you tell the story, right?
Absolutely.
And if you focus on the chords too much, the story gets
I
lost.
totally agree.
So we can also extend the chords with one more note on the B string. You go to D. I saw you play before D9, like this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we add the melody, I think we can add one more extension to the chord. So we go.
Yeah. And then do a little bar there, which is a
Yeah.
bit tricky. Half a bar.
Yeah.
Not everybody likes that.
I can pull it off.
You know, you could do a full bar, but I think it's a waste of energy.
Yeah. Never. Yeah.
So-
That's pretty.
Just a regular major 7th.
Yeah. Pretty.
Oh. But I think that's a bit posh.
Sharp 11.
Yeah.
Spicy.
You don't need that just yet.
No. Okay, so the last bit is adding that melody you played.
Well, if you want to add the melody, you've got to give something up. Because you can't do everything. So let's just say we're not going to do all the whole bass line. Let's just make it an A minor 6. The first chord. So it's just so that we can get the melody. What I want to get is 2, 3, 4, 1. That's what I want.
On that first chord, okay.
But how do I get that? So the only way is just to go.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I
so
mean?
we play 4 on D and 5 and 5 on G and B with the open A string. Okay, now you can alternate between the D and the E on the B string, yeah.
That's for you to work out, yeah. That's
just-
what you're good at.
Yeah.
That's it. Great. And then go to this chord. Keeping that
Yeah.
bar.
Yeah.
Same on the top. So
Yeah,
that's
it's-
great.
yeah.
The only thing that changes is the bass. Oh, and this note.
Yeah.
And then
G minor 7.
oh, actually, yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay, so we also...
here we have to give something up as again.
Yeah.
So we're not playing a root note. We're not playing the C. We're just going straight to the.
A D, C,
Yeah.
and then... Oh, F.
Oh, yeah. It's
Yeah,
actually,
go
you know what? It's a bit clashy.
Yeah.
So I would actually go have this on its own. There's nothing wrong with having melody on its own sometimes. It's very beautiful. Yeah.
And then you can
So-
breathe. Okay.
That's it.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't do the high
I've
notes.
got it. So,
Before we go to the G minor, we hit that high G.
yeah, whatever you want.
Oh, you could.
Yeah.
It's an option. Optional note is always good. So if you feel like it, do it.
I would have it on a standalone.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Again.
Yeah.
Like just with the F.
And then,
Yeah. I think I should. I'm always afraid of a single
No,
note.
no,
because,
no.
But it.
it actually, it's like the vocalist. You suddenly the band drops out and the vocals is left on its own. There's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
Of like laying out. Because,
That's
you know,
right.
playing a solo guitar is a little bit like a mini orchestra. You're the band.
Yeah.
So sometimes
band, yeah, the
players
band.
just need to chill.
Yes.
So by
Yeah. The band
what I
comes
mean?
in after this.
yeah,
That's cool. Yeah.
and then I think that's it.
This is it. We shouldn't push it too far.
Okay, melody.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Da-dum. Got it. That's it.
Okay. Well, you just have to play it 10 times before you can really start to feel and
Yeah.
start to think.
Well, sometimes before you do anything, I think the best way to approach these kind of tunes, or any tunes really, is just sit there for 5 minutes and just go.
Yeah.
You can even make a phone call while you're doing or read a book, but it's just like it's like a trance. Like all music has a sort of trance, and that's this trance,
Yeah.
and then
It's great how you have to move, right? A little bit.
it's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah,
But that's
definitely.
the most important thing. Instead of just
Yeah. Like
don't play it like a sort of classical player. You have to really chill out on this, and imagine you're just like in a restaurant with
I think
your girlfriend or your.
that's exactly what makes you such a versatile guitar player and very distinctive in your sound. You blend all these genres together. You got the rock sound from Hendrix, but you also got the classical sound and the precision from a classical player, but also
Hope so.
the sensitive touch from like that Brazilian
That's it.
repertoire.
I'm very lucky to have been exposed to so many types of music, but with the end product is like I'm a little bit like a character actor. I put myself in different situations, and none of them are really authentic. You know,
You should never say that.
but it's really none of it is authentic.
Okay.
But it's just I put myself in character. You know, because you know the real me there isn't. It's just like a combination of all those things. The real you is what you actually end up writing.
Yes.
As a
Okay,
musician,
of course.
what you write is represents who you are as a musician.
Yeah. But this helps if you play a lot of these different genres.
Yeah.
Your writing always adapts to that.
But I recommend every guitar player to learn just the basics of bossa nova.
Okay.
I
Well,
really do, because it's a double-edged sword. You're going to learn about feel, and you're going to learn about jazz chords and touch. It's all about the touch. And once you've got the basics of bossa nova, there's very many places you can go from there.
yeah. It really got me excited.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna loop this chord progression and then just play over it, find different voicings. Thank you so much, Dominic.
Hey, thanks, Paul. It's been good to hang out, man.
Absolutely. We should do
Yeah.
it one more time.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and grab a cup of coffee in
Yeah,
Paris
right.
somewhere.
And I must say, you're a very good baker.
Oh,
I like
thank you.
the bread that you make.
Yeah.
He makes his own bread, guys.
I've been playing my heart out, and the one thing he compliments me is the baking.
No, yeah, I love your
No.
playing, your technique, and
It's-
all that
it's
sort of
okay.
thing. No, but it's great. Great
Thank
to
you so
hang
much.
out.
All right, yeah, likewise.
Cheers, mate.
Have a good day.
See
Bye.
you then. But I think my favourite's going to be you and me playing Shape together.
Well, you play a
Oh,
good
yeah.
guitar, but can you bake a good bread?
Bread, man. Bread is so important. But
But
so is the bossa nova.
I think I feel the same kind of giddiness that Paul was feeling there at the end as you soak in like their back and forth there, and it's like I just want to run off and bossa nova it.
And just the turn taking there also. I mean, just the, like one guy's doing the actual bossa nova chord shapes and the other one is doing a little lead thing. And then whoever's doing the lead jumps into the chord shapes. The other one takes the lead. I mean, it's a very common turn taking thing, but if you don't play music with other musicians, that is something that would be kind of foreign to you. So that's something that's, it's good to see it. It's good to, understand what's going on there and how to be able to change roles, go back and forth like that, to, have that give and take with another musician.
Yeah, and Dominic made an awesome point in there. I was like almost gonna put my hands up when he said sometimes the band needs to chill. Like
Yes.
with this kind of style, it's important to recognize where the pockets are
Mhm.
for whatever you're playing, whatever part you're playing in all of this.
Yep. And letting that one melody note, for example, just sing by itself, hang out there without a chord. You don't have to have a whole chord and a whole, rhythm thing hanging out behind it. You just hang that note out there for a minute and then you go back into what you're doing. And it really does leave that nice, something different, that relaxing, take a breath, like you said, give everybody time to, very chill vibe. Yes, exactly.
For the listener, it gives a feeling of real movement sometimes. Like changes don't always have to be hyper progressive and like sometimes a little pause and a single note is a change. It bridges between the parts, and styles like this get you good at recognizing that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And like they mentioned, it helps you with getting feel and the touch that you're giving the guitar. A guitarist practicing this style gets to practice different techniques than some of the other genres and rhythms.
Yeah. And if somebody just sat down in front of you with an acoustic guitar and you said, hey, play something, and they just started playing, block chords, here's a G, here's a C, here's a D, that's good. You can play something cool that way. But somebody who sits down and breaks out something like that, where they're getting, that bass bounce, they're getting that little chord stabs in there, they're getting that melody structure. I mean, that's where he was talking about, as a solo guitar instrumentalist, like you are the band. So you're playing the bass, you're playing the chords, you're playing the melody note, and you're singing along or hitting rhythm or whatever. It's all you. So use that one guitar and try to get all those parts worked in together, and therefore you need to give something up or leave some space in order to get all those jobs done if you're doing all those things.
Yep. And like you noticed, there was a little bit of the MASH theme going on in there.
Indeed, I heard that for sure.
Oh, I didn't hear it at first, but then you mentioned it, and I'm like, oh, it is.
It's just that high melody, back and forth between those two notes at the top. That as it was going back and forth, I'm like, yeah, that does sound like that theme. I think it was called "Suicide Is Painless." Is the name of the song from.
It felt like the MASH theme went like Caribbean or
Mhm.
or like Italian.
Mhm. Exactly. Good stuff. Now,
Yeah.
like you were mentioning before, some of the different styles were named specifically for dance. For example, like, the foxtrot, they talk about foxtrots because they have that, style. And another would be the waltz. And that's something that you chose as something for this evening.
Yeah. So thank you at Paul Davids
Thanks, Paul.
for an
Always a
excellent
pleasure.
introduction into Bossa Nova.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
And now to the waltz. Let's dance, Glenn.
Yeah. The waltz.
Yeah, and this one comes from Piano TV, one that I came across last year, I think on our piano night,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then I just kept
Would not
going
shock
back.
Exactly. Nice.
Alicia, a piano
Mhm.
teacher, musician, and overall music enthusiast. Me too. Oh,
Nice.
she's another Canadian.
Mhm. Excellent. You could probably see where she is from there. You're way north.
Yeah, and she's got some great videos with the piano and music in general. Good overall video channel for instructions, analysis,
Hmm.
and she's gonna analyze what is a waltz and why we can dance to it so easily.
Hmm. And this is how we waltz. The characteristics.
Welcome to another episode of Piano TV. So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the waltz, both the dance and the music form, but more so the music form. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how it works and what it is, and we're going to listen to some famous examples on both the piano and the orchestra so you can get a good sense of what the waltz is supposed to sound like. And I'm doing this for next week when I, spoiler alert, provide a waltz tutorial on the website, so this just gives you a little bit of background info. All right, let's hop to it. Alright, so what is a waltz? A waltz is/was a popular song form back in the 1800s or the Romantic era, especially in Vienna, which was kind of like still is, a big musical hub in Europe. Though a lot of waltzes were written to be danced to, some composers instead decided to transform the genre to be purely instrumental and just to be listened to. So an example of this that we're going to listen to really quick is Chopin's Minute Waltz. You could not dance to this if you tried. Waltzes were composed in triple meter, so usually 3/4 time, and they have like a bop rhythm with one chord per bar. So generally the way it works is a low bass note is played for the first beat, and then the other two beats, beat 2 and 3, fill out the chord just a little higher on the piano, so you get something that sounds like this. So you hear and another feature of the waltz too is you'll notice that beat 1 and 2 tend to slur together, so instead of just 1, 2, 3, it's kind of like the second 2 beats are light, but the first and the second beat drag into each other. So this type of pattern you've probably heard before even in modern music, because composers like Adele have used it in their songs. I think her song is called First Love, if you want to listen to that has that same pattern. So the waltz as a dance was actually considered rather risque, since it's a couples dance that needs the couples to stand pretty close together. The character of the waltz is very kind of smooth and elegant and graceful, which when you're interpreting it on an instrument like the piano, basically just means that it's going to have a moderate tempo, about 70 beats per bar, which actually ends up feeling pretty fast when you're playing it, with nice, elegant melodies. One of the most famous waltzes of all time is Johann Strauss's Blue Danube Waltz. So I guarantee you've heard it. We'll play it in a second here, but it has literally been played hundreds of times in movies and all kinds of things, from everything from 2001 Space Odyssey to The Simpsons to Titanic to, I could probably keep going. most famous composers of waltzes for the piano are Johannes Brahms and Frédéric Chopin. So we'll talk about Brahms first. Now, he loved waltzes. He was even known to have said that he wished and lamented that he didn't write the Blue Danube Waltz because he loved it so much. But he didn't compose a whole ton of them, but the ones he did compose are pretty famous. So the one we're going to play here today is his Waltz in A-flat major. It's number 15 from his 39th opus. And it's got that like characteristic sentimental romantic flair that Brahms brings to the table. So one of my personal all-time favorite piano waltzes is the one by Chopin from his Opus 64, number 2. This is the Waltz in C-sharp minor. It's really beautiful. I'm gonna get you to listen to it, and I want to see if you can hear that but kind of pattern that we talked about earlier being so characteristic of waltzes. And I also want you to think about this. When you're listening to it, do you think Chopin was writing the kind of waltz that was meant to be listened to or danced to? And to conclude our discussion on waltzes, I wanted to show you an orchestral waltz by Tchaikovsky from the 1900s. This is from his Sleeping Beauty ballet. Now, you probably recognize that title from Disney. And in fact, if you grew up watching Disney's Sleeping Beauty, you'll recognize the song too that I'm about to show you. So in the Sleeping Beauty movie, this song has the title Once Upon a Dream. So it's a pretty famous children's tune. That is all for our discussion on waltzes, but I want you to throw in your opinion in the comments if you think that I skipped like a really awesome waltz, or just let me know what your favorite happens to be. Because of time, you know, the time frame that I have for these videos, I can't do like the 50 zillion waltzes that are out there that are popular, so I just kind of handpicked a few of my personal favorites, but I'd like to hear what yours are as well. So yeah, please leave that below in the comments, and if you haven't already, just visit pianotv.net because that's where I post all these videos aside from YouTube, which you can subscribe to if you haven't already. Thank you for watching, and catch you next time. What are you doing, you little weirdo?
Oh, she's talking to you, Glenn.
What are you doing? No, I didn't mean it.
He's not
It's
a
all-
little weirdo. He's 6'7".
And C-sharp minor. Very nice.
I love her examples. Those are great examples to get familiar with it, and that bop 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 rhythm.
Yep.
I really feel it now when I'm listening to it. You know, I understand the waltz a lot better.
Yep. And each of those are pieces that my dad definitely played. So those are ones that I would hear around the house all the time as a kid. So anytime I hear little snippets of any of those pieces, they're very comfortable and familiar to me because they're, surrounded me when I was growing up as a kid. So very cool.
Yeah, what
Always
blows
liked
me
them,
away
especially
is her left hand bounce and how she can jump the way she does so fluidly. That's what I want to achieve one day with my left hand.
Well, one big thing about that is that a lot of that has to do with the pedal, being able to use the pedal, because you're hitting that first note very loudly, and like as you're hitting that note, you're hitting the pedal so that you're holding that note open, and then as you're hitting those upper notes, depending on they're probably using the ostinato pedal where it's just
I was going to say, is that where the like middle pedal, like
it should be
when you do have them, like that's where it comes in handy, because you
want to hold that note, but you want to leave the rest of the notes staccato or being able to be muted when you let go of them, so that it's more like that low note hangs while the upper notes can can be short. But in order to do that, like if you're on a piano, you could hold that low note. But when you're trying to do that jump that she's doing there, like stride jump, where you hit that one low note, you're hitting with the pedal at the same time, boom, and hitting the pedal to hold it, and then coming up with the left hand doing the rest of that chord while you're doing other stuff with the right.
Yeah, the little like stabbing approach there, like reminds me of like how guitar sometimes do the muting, you know, and get their accents muted and then unsustained, mute.
To me, some of it is like having open strings in a guitar setup. Like, you know, you could have one of your strings that's just ringing open while you're doing other things like with chords. So you have chords that are changing or doing, you know, muting and all that, but you have one note that's just kind of ringing through as a drone, for example. Is something that you can do. Same idea, where you're having that one note that's ringing out and holding kind of, you know, what key you're in, or holding that presence while everything else is changing around it.
Yeah, and in the case of Waltz, this is where the right hand can have a lot of fun. You know, if you get that bop bop on the left side, and you listen to her examples, like all those composers chose to have the right hand just like dancing around. The right hand is the dancer.
Yeah, exactly. And it's free to do so because the left hand is able to hold down that, you know, such a solid rhythm that keeps everything so locked into that you can then be free to do whatever you want with the other.
See, if I can get good at that, I will have effectively switched the roles. Because for me, I'm good with the bouncing with my right hand, but getting it's that damn pinky. Like, you know, the thumb feels like a good foundation for me. So when I'm bouncing like that, it's nice with the thumb. With the pinky, it's like Darian said, sometimes you got to reprogram your brain just to like get your opposite hands to work the way you want to.
Yeah. One thing that's crazy is that after playing bass for so long, I noticed that the pinky on my left hand, the fretting hand, is like way bigger and stronger than the pinky on the right hand, because it does so much work at being, you know, fretting on the bass and, you know, hammering on and being able to do all of that, that when I look at the two of them side by side, it's like, wow, you know, it's like they should be the same size because it's the same finger on each hand, you know, but like this one has gotten so much, you know, abuse from, you know, playing and sliding on the bass and all that kind of thing, that it actually, you know, made it tougher and bigger and stronger, so that when I do play, like, it feels like like that pinky feels plenty solid when it's time to hit. And right when it's not weak either, but it's just, like you said, like sometimes if it does feel weak, then you know, you got to work that out. You got to, you know, get the little barbell and work that pinky out.
Glenn's pinky is like our thumbs.
Yeah. I mean, that's a strong pinky right there. Exactly. But it's from, you know, all the years of, you know, using on the bass, the 5-string bass, and same thing with just, again, the fingertips getting toughened up from playing and sliding on those big fat bass strings. You know, that fifth bass string, the low B, is like a cheese grater. So it's like when you slide on it,
you definitely give it exercise.
Exactly. And your fingers toughened up from that, so that when I switch back to guitar, it's not like, oh, their strings are so sharp. It's just, you know, my fingers are toughened up so they don't care.
It's like leather.
Yeah, a little bit. Good stuff.
Well, that was an awesome introduction into the waltz, Alicia.
Yes.
We got our boss on. We got our waltz on.
And what else? What about how classical musicians?
That was at Piano TV Net.
Right.
For any of you aspiring pianists out there, great resource on YouTube for piano there.
Absolutely.
And speaking of great resources, this is one of the Adams, the big one, Adam Neely. Like Paul actually mentioned him at the beginning, like, because he gives such good advice on things that a lot of the other big musical YouTube channels, you know, they keep up with each other, and this is a channel that for sure, you know, you want to understand music all around in general. This is a go-to.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, I think we saw him in a video with Mary Spender the other week when we were looking at the busking video.
Yep. Yeah, he covers everything, a little bit of everything. You get theory, you get questions and thoughts about music, and it's sometimes out of the box questions and thoughts. That's what I love about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, video essays, lessons, and vlogs on new horizons in music and music theory.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect way to say it, Adam.
Yep. Great
And
stuff.
that's Adam Neely over on YouTube. He's trucking along. 1.77 million subscribers. You go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Working on 2 million.
And that's how we found you, hunting for good musical questions. And this question, I figured as we were looking at all this, you know me, I'm always looking at it from the piano perspective, classical music perspective. That's why I love like Nari's channel.
Yep.
And just like Nari, he tends to look at these things and see it from, like, say, you know, a classically trained musician's perspective. And
Mhm.
rhythm is a little different to a classically trained musician than someone who just comes out and starts banging on pots and pans and, you know, turns into a drummer.
Sure. Some of it
In
comes
order-
down to notation as
in-
well, being able to read the notation for whether it's percussion or just rhythm in general, and being able to, you know, look at what's on the paper and know what rhythm you're expected to play to make that sound the way it's supposed to.
Well, and with orchestral percussions, a lot of times you're like one percussive sound in a group. So like you're waiting for that triangle moment,
Oh, yeah.
that gong moment. Like there's other musicians taking care of other percussions. And in classical music, you tend to focus on your hits and your parts, and that's it.
Yeah. And I was picturing, you know, if you are playing that triangle and you have one hit, but it's like, okay, so you're looking at your sheet music and it's 47 measures of rest, rest. But you gotta be poised and ready, because when that measure comes, it's like you need to know the right spot, hit it in the right place, and, you know, in the right way and all that stuff. So
I feel so rested. I'm ready to hit that triangle.
but are you going to sit there and count each one? Like, that was the thing, is like, if you come in on measure 47, you know, if you're sitting there going, you know, 1 E and 2 E and getting all the way up to 47.
I bet you those orchestral triangle players are looking at that sheet music, even
following.
though it's a rest, they are
Yeah.
bouncing each measure.
They're undoubtedly watching like the lead line, so that they're, you know, they're hearing the melody line and they're watching, you know, so that they know, okay, here comes boom. Right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Well, if they've actually practiced the piece, at some point they're probably gonna make a cue. They're gonna know it's that part because something else cues them if they practice it. But if it's a brand new piece to them, and here's the sheet music, never heard the song, you gotta follow the sheet.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah. So let's see
that's
what
great stuff.
Adam's thoughts are as to what makes rhythm different for classical musicians.
Mm-hmm.
Feel rhythm can be very different from the way that rhythm is felt by musicians who play jazz, rock, or pop music, or really any music from the past 100 years that has its origins in West African rhythms. Professional classical musicians are known for their tone color and their control and their dynamic range, but very often rhythmic facilities in classical musicians can be left a little bit wanting. For example, check out this actual instructional video from this double bass professor who teaches at the University of Washington, who talks about the importance of being able to accurately perform quarter note triplets, and then he doesn't quite accurately perform them.
There are a lot of places here where you have to play 3 against 2. So you have to do this da 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 dum. So
Okay, so what's going on here? This guy's been teaching at the University of Washington for 24 years and can't perform this very simple rhythm. What gives? 3 years ago, I walked into a rehearsal studio to rehearse music for the master's recital of Wim Layson, a Belgian composer and pianist. Wim got together an ensemble of a classical string quartet and a jazz rhythm section, and so we sat down to sight read a piece of music in 9/8. The basic pulse of this piece of music was 2 + 2 + 2 + 2 + 1. So it was sort of like 4/4, but with an added 8th note. So we sight read through the music pretty decently, but we in the rhythm section train wrecked when we got to a measure that was accidentally notated like this. In this particular measure, it looks like the unit pulse is actually a group of 3/8 notes, or a dotted quarter note, instead of the unit pulse that we were supposed to be feeling, which was a quarter note. This is why when you're writing music in odd time signatures, it's extremely important to get the beaming of the 8th notes right, because it shows the unit pulse of what you're supposed to be feeling. Now, we in the rhythm section train wrecked when we first came across this, but the classical string musicians kind of just sight read through it with no problem whatsoever. So my initial reaction to this, like most people's reactions are when they're confronted with the virtuosity of a well-trained classical musician, is that these musicians were simply superhumanly good sight readers of a caliber of musicianship far, far higher than mine as a lowly jazz musician. This artifice was shattered quite spectacularly a couple months later when we actually went to record the music as part of our album Inside Outside. We used the same classical string quartet, and they performed most of the album quite brilliantly, but they had a lot of problem with this particular rhythm. This 16th note syncopation they could never really quite play cleanly, and so we actually had to fix it in post-production. This confused me, because I saw these same classical musicians perform these very technical feats of musicianship, and yet this simple rhythm that I and the rest of the rhythm section had no problem with, they could not really play very cleanly. Why might that be? One framework to understand this, and this is generalizing a little bit here, is that classical musicians react to the pulse, and jazz, rock, pop, etc. musicians feel the pulse. Classical musicians will very often perform in an ensemble under the direction of a conductor, and the conductor's job is to keep everybody in sync, not unlike a drummer does. Orchestral musicians will react to the ictus of a conductor's baton or a conductor's breathing, and then they'll count rhythms based upon the pulse that they are seeing. This might give some insight into why Wim's string quartet could sight read that music that was contrary to the pulse of the rhythm section. For the rhythm section to accurately play these rhythms, we needed to graft the subdivisions onto the actual pulse. And it was very difficult to do that when visually the pulses did not align. So the result of all of this is classical musicians might have a good sense of rhythm, but not have a good sense of what's called phase locking. Check out these two metronomes, one on my phone and one on my iPad. They're both clicking away at 120 beats per minute, and yet they're not phase locked. The downbeats do not align with one another. A big part of locking into a groove is not only keeping the same tempo, but also phase locking with the other musicians in a particular ensemble. Watch this video of Leonard Bernstein conducting Mahler's Fifth Symphony. No, the video and audio are not out of sync in this one. This is an extreme example of where the orchestra and the conductor are not phase locked, but it is a common sort of occurrence in classical ensembles where not everybody is playing perfectly in sync. This actually is not a huge pressing problem for orchestral music, and the reason for this is that the initial attack transients of strings and woodwinds generally are fairly soft. If the initial attacks of each one of the notes are not 100% phase locked, it actually doesn't sound particularly bad. This is very much not the case for any style of music that relies upon drums. The initial attack transient of a drum is very sharp and very short, so if any other instruments or any other drums are out of phase with that initial attack transient of the drums, it sounds kind of bad. It's a rhythmic dissonance known as a flam, and it can be particularly vexing. This rhythmic dissonance is what makes things sound not locked in, or not grooving, or not together. And it's not as huge a deal with orchestral music because of the softer initial attack transients. Check out these two examples. They both use the exact same MIDI data, which is not 100% phase locked. But in the first example, you have softer attacks and slower attacks, and in the second example, you have much sharper and shorter attacks. So classical musicians might not apply the same rigor to the study of phase locking as other musicians do, but that doesn't mean that they have poor rhythm, it just means that rhythm is sort of applied in a slightly different way. In string quartet music, for example, the rhythm sort of ebbs and flows, and it's a lot more fluid and goes with the melodic line. Let's check out Maurice Ravel's first string quartet, he actually only wrote one string quartet, in F major. Is the pulse metronomic? No, of course not. If everything was completely even, it would sound very stilted and unmusical. So the music itself requires this very different understanding of rhythm as a whole, and so the musicians themselves are more apt to apply that understanding. So it's a little unfair to bemoan classical musicians' lack of phase locking because the music itself requires a completely different understanding of rhythm in general. If you want to check out a great string quartet that has a great jazz rhythmic sensibility, check out the Turtle Island String Quartet. This has been Adam Neely. If you've enjoyed this lesson, please comment, please like, please subscribe, do all of those things. I have a new lesson coming out every Monday, so stay tuned.
Oh My head
Flam.
grew 3 times bigger. I learned so much from him.
Oh yeah. Now the easiest way to just demonstrate a flam is like if you just let 2 fingers fall on the piano, but one is slightly above the other, instead of like because there's 2 notes not right at the same time, but you have one fall right behind the other. I do it on drums too, like one stick falling just behind the other, you get a ba-da, and it's just that happens so fast that it almost sounds like one note, but not quite.
Well, that's a new term for me. That's the first time I heard that term.
Mhm. Oh yeah, that's one that we see on the drums a lot, and we were talking about it when one of our drummers was trying to describe a beat to the conga player, and it was basically just a flam thing where he wanted you come down like with one hand first, like you come down with the left hand first the first time, and you come down with the right hand first the second time, so it's like a back and forth, like ba-doom, da-doom, 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 da-doom. So it's almost like a gallop thing because you're going back and forth with the higher note first and then the higher note last.
So it's not like a blam, it's a flam.
Nope, it's a flam, and not the flim flam because that's different too. It's just a
Now,
flam.
now he made one good observation there that what did he say? Classical musicians react to
Mhm.
rhythm,
Yep.
and what was the counter to that?
Like jazz musicians or
Jazz
improvisers
musicians, yeah,
internalizing and feeling it. Yeah.
yeah.
And that
When
is
he
kind of
said that, I was like, wow, that is why.
some of it is like basically building your own internal metronome. Now, for some people, it'll be a foot tap. Like in the Bossa Nova video, for example, you could hear a little click, and that click in the background was actually the guitar player's foot on the floor. He was just tapping his foot on the beat in order to keep the pulse going between the 2 guitar players. Sometimes, like if I'm playing bass, I'll be nodding my head or tapping my foot or rocking or whatever. I have some way of visually, and it's not because I have to alert everybody to what the timing is, but it's my way of keeping track of the timing, because there's songs where everybody breaks and everybody has to come back in on the pulse, right, or on the beat. So like when we're doing a break, it's like we break and I'm still boom, 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 and I'll do like a bigger gesture into the one so that we're all landing on that one at the same time, because that sharp attack transient for the bass and the drums have to be right on the pulse. Other instruments can come after, but
That's why I grew my hair long, because I could feel it, and it was like a metronome as it splashed around.
yeah, exactly. So everybody comes up with their own way of having that little metronome inside, but by doing that, because otherwise, if you're just playing and there's a break and you're just going to hold and try to come in at the right time, if you're not doing something to keep that pulse going, you're just guessing. You're just going to come in whenever, and you're probably not going to be right because you have to be focused. You could be watching somebody else who's keeping track, or you can be keeping track yourself, or both. Ideally both, because then some people will keep track in different ways. Some people nod twice as fast. So like I've seen bass players do that, like Mike Gordon from Fish. Some of the times, like it's a slower pulse in the song, but his head is bobbing at double the speed because he's actually tracking smaller subdivisions of rhythm, because he knows he's got parts that he has to fit into those little sections in there. So he's got to be ready for that when it comes.
You got to keep double time just to be on time.
Yeah, exactly. Which doesn't hurt. That's one of the tricks to being able to master some of the more difficult rhythms, is just thinking about it as more subdivisions, and you just make it so that you think about it in a broader sense, like making each measure twice as big so that you can fit all that extra stuff in there.
Yeah, and all this could lead to a timing night. We could have a night on timing. It's long time coming,
Sure.
no pun
Yeah.
intended.
And then we could talk about a bunch of different songs that use odd timings or different timings, and how they incorporate them, how that works out for them. Sure.
Well, and the importance of being able to cut and double time, it's a big part of part arranging and part making.
Definitely. Yep, absolutely.
And he gave me another idea for a topic, phasing in all sorts of different ways, because phasing in music, the way he was describing it there, is percussive approach, and the importance of instruments phasing properly with each other.
Sure. And not interfering.
Yeah,
One of
which is something that we don't tend to think conscientiously as much about as we should when we're putting music together.
One that I saw a video on the other day was, or I saw the thumbnail of the video, was about basically letting the bass drum, or the bass and the kick drum, letting them breathe. Like you have the kick, and then the bass, even though the bass was hitting on the same transient, it kind of builds after. So it's kind of as the kick drum is, as kick drum's initial transient is dying off, the bass is now filling in and picking up to fill it in. So it sounds more like it's breathing almost, where the bass is, whoom, 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 along with the kick drum pushing it, but they have to work at just the right timing.
Oh, and it can be so effective when you do it right. You create new sounding music.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's good to mess around with that stuff.
Adam, you never disappoint. Like, my head's almost as big as Glenn's now.
Oh, I'm moving closer.
Adam Neely. I know a couple of our viewers right now already know the channel because they're all like, Adam's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Already have some fans in the house for sure.
Yeah, you do.
Good stuff.
Now we got our last two are freshy channels with some interesting stuff all around. This one is a really cool video. We're gonna see instruments that I never even imagined.
Nice. Some strange instruments.
And the sounds that come out of them, that's what I think surprised me the most, because you can't always judge an instrument by how it looks. Like, all of a sudden you hear it and you could have the ugliest looking instrument that makes the most beautiful sound. Or something that looks completely bizarre and it's like, how is it making that sound?
Exactly.
This one's coming from @LazyCreativist 9200.
All right.
And yeah, he likes unusual things. But the weird musical instruments, you caught my attention this week with this one. Now, this one I do have actually in our cloud. Because there's going to be a few points in here. I'd like to get your opinion on the instrument.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try to stay off the screen for part of it, though, so that we're not covering up that corner. Sometimes we block what's on screen, like with that timing. There we go.
Well, like I said, you got a big head.
It's in the way. Sometimes when I go
weirdest...
to the Zoom, I'm upside down, so I have to spin over.
I'm getting dizzy. We looked at this one a couple weeks ago.
And the saw, nice.
I love the sound of the saw. I would totally play this.
It's about how much stress you're putting into the metal.
Yeah, I wonder how long it takes to get used to getting good with that. It looks so natural.
Yeah, definitely. It took some practice.
Oh, and I love these. I want to get a MIDI version of these.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, check this one out. I'm going to get my hands on this bad boy.
I like it.
The pads are mushy. Look at how he's pushing them in.
For expression, sure. Very cool.
Oh, imagine a pipe organ and a harmonica had a baby.
Nice. Harmonica and pipe organ. Ocarina.
Oh, and this is another one that I would totally get my hands on if I could.
My friend Mike's brother-in-law has one.
It doesn't look easy, but I love the sound of it. Looks like he's playing a chicken leg.
A wing, yeah.
Oh, I love the sound of this one. Very Japanese feeling.
Nice.
Looks like it's a bitch to maintain, though.
Yeah.
And this always blows me away, the glass guys.
My sister did this for a school project one time. Did a song with the water glasses.
He just cleaned out the cupboards and grabbed every bowl.
And a couple of chopsticks. Very cool though. Good sounds.
Oh, we've seen this one before.
It's like we're on a boat too.
Well, he really made a splash with that instrument. Yeah, look at this one.
Nice.
Oh, that's a great sound effects machine.
Very interesting.
Yeah, this one sounds so beautiful. Look, it's round.
Strings all around. Yeah, yeah. Reminds me of like a harp wrapped around in this, wrapped around a cylinder.
Oh, this guy grabbed a T-Rex and turned it into an instrument.
Made a T-Rex into a T-Rung.
It's got a great sound though, like for wooden drum sounds.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, this one has a funky sound.
Another good sound effects machine. The cartoons.
I'd have a lot of fun with that one. My instrument's bigger than yours.
Ricola.
I thought this was a different instrument though. What do they call it? The didgeridoo or
No,
doesn't that
didgeridoo is
have
a little different. That's more of a larger cylinder all around. That's a kind of a sound. This is an Alp horn.
Is that bamboo that they made that out of?
Not sure.
I could have fun with this one too.
Smooth style. Smooth style.
Uh-oh. The Udu.
Looks a little bit like empty wine jugs.
Got a great sound. That reminds me of the guy from Animal House who did that throat thing.
Yep.
Dude, how did they get those rocks to sound like that?
Yeah, you just chip them down smaller until you find the one right sound. Crystal bolt.
Yeah, this reminds me of old synths, like 70s style synths. Oh, I love the sound of this one, but I would hate to lug it around.
Very much like an accordion with the baffle there, yeah.
Well, it's part keyboard, part accordion, pipe organ. Produces a beautiful sound, though.
Yeah, I like it.
Oh, and this one's really cool. We saw this like a month or two ago. Remember Samurai guitarist?
Yeah, yeah.
He learned how to play one of these. That's the one that gets tuned to the vocalist. You actually tune it to the voice.
Interesting.
Dog's like, I could do better. Oh, there's your pipes.
Nice.
Is it the Blue Man Group that uses stuff like that on stage?
Wouldn't surprise me. That sounds crazy.
Yeah, that's the heavy metal instrument in all these. Now, I can't believe that sounds like that, considering what it looks like. This is one of the ones I was talking about that I expected a totally different kind of sound.
Yeah, actually, my cousins, my aunt and uncle, they had one that was very, very small. It was only like maybe 8 notes on it, like a tiny little marimba, but it had that same kind of a sound from just flicking them. Yeah.
When I first met Jan Carlos with Ange over on the Zoom, he had a mini version. Oh, that's the didgeridoo.
And actually, I've usually seen them as a straight stick, like 6 feet long, rather than curved around like that.
Yeah, I've never seen one like this. It's cool though. It's got some great low end. Glenn doesn't need a didgeridoo. Oh, I saw this one a couple months back too. Another one that Ange threw at me.
Horror movie sound effects.
Totally. I like how you can shape it by turning it and moving it around. You kind of shape your sound. Oh, this was another one that, like, how does this work?
Have you ever put a basketball in a swimming pool and slapped it? Like, that's what it happened.
I need to slap more basketballs.
Definitely.
Man, there's a lot of possibilities with that.
Yeah, that one piece is like a steel drum.
Yeah, it totally feels like a steel drum with attitude. Oh, and Dorian just made a good comment. Imagine an orchestra of all those 29 instruments.
Now remember, some of those you can make yourself. You know, it's as far as, you know, the one where it's like a basketball in a bucket, or, you know, in a bowl of, yeah, like, you know, that style right there. You know, like that's something that you could. Some of those you could make yourself.
Oh, I could see building them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That would be a fun project.
Mm-hmm. And you could do all kinds of things. You know, whether it's that one, the water glasses was one that's easy. It's a question of, you know, water does evaporate. So it's like, once you tune them, it's going to change tuning very quickly. So
definitely some of those look like they take some maintenance.
Indeed. Watch your ear there. I hear some crunching going on.
Oh, yeah. Gonna have to switch to my Logitech headphone soon.
Mm-hmm.
These are on their last leg.
Yeah, they have served you well.
So that was some interesting instruments coming from at Lazy Creativist 9200 over on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And now we are going to look at every percussion, and some that you might not have even thought as percussion, but are considered percussion in orchestral situations.
Yeah, exactly. And break them all down and see what we all have.
And this one comes from at EMC.
Mm-hmm.
He has dealt with all. He understands the nuances, the intricacies, the complexities of learning to play them and how to get them to fit with everything else. And as he does this list, he puts all of it into consideration.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. How to categorize them, which ones are complicated, which ones are simpler, what you're dealing with for them.
Wow, he's got 1.2K videos chock full of percussion resource. Fixing bad percussion writing. I would be back for those on another night. But this one, he's gonna go through all the different instruments and start to put them in order of priority from hardest to easiest.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Let me move this and slide
that one over there too.
This one over.
There it is.
Good morning. Today I have created the percussion instrument tier list, and we are going to be ranking and rating all of the percussion instruments. So you should already know that percussionists have to play 100 different instruments for 4.20 hours a day each. However, there are not 100 percussion instruments in this list, because that's a lot. So I narrowed it down to the top 69, and we are going to place these strategically onto the board and determine which one is the hardest and which ones are the easiest, because some of these instruments, they take, years and years of practice and training to get good at them, and then there's other ones that are just really, really easy to figure out. So the first instrument we are going to place on the chart is gonna be the triangle. Number 1. Yeah, I want the triangle to be number 1 for at least a few seconds here, because Two Set Violin keeps disrespecting the triangle. They made this freaking contraption. I mean, 69 triangles is pretty epic, but they could have done like so much better stuff with this. So yeah, putting the sticky tape on the triangles is gonna make it sound, well, like this. At least with the PewDiePie tambourine tower, as long as you don't put the sticky tape on the tambourine jingles, it'll still sound like a tambourine. But if this video gets 6,900 likes, I will stack 69 of one of these instruments. So make sure that you click that like button and compose a comment.
Oh, everybody go click like. Let's get him there.
Speaking of tambourine, let's put that one in next, and I am gonna put that in front of triangle. Sorry, triangle, you already lost. All right, let's do the old standard instrument. Let's go with the snare drum next. That is gonna go right here. I'm just kidding. It's gonna go right here. All right, let's do a weird one next. One that is not common knowledge. Oh, the Mahler hammer. Yes, I love this picture. Yes, in the Mahler symphony, he requires you to hit a wooden box with a gigantic wooden hammer. This is going right here because it's really, really easy. Just hit a thing as hard as possible. Ooh, the octobon.
I play lead hammer.
Okay, these are gonna go... I'm actually gonna put these here behind the triangle.
Oh, you're definitely a hammer guy.
Gonna go here. Ooh, bass drum. So there's a lot of different kinds of bass drums. You got the concert bass drum, which is the big guy, and usually the concert bass drum parts are pretty easy. But you also got marching bass drums, which those are insanely hard to do. Beltry is gonna go in last place right now. That is also very, very easy to play. Ah, yes, the slide whistle. This is another instrument that has been very controversial recently. Christopher Bill claims that the slide whistle is a piccolo trombone, which makes no sense at all because it's definitely not a brass instrument. Honestly, it's probably closest to like a flute, which would make it a woodwind, but I still defend that the slide whistle is a percussion instrument. I consider any kind of whistle to be adopted into the percussion family. We're the ones that have to play them in any ensemble.
And I kind of agree
with
with him.
Parts onto the percussion staff. Okay,
I
but
agree
the
with
slide
him
whistle
for that
parts
reason.
Are always really, really easy, like 99.9% of the time. You just have to play a glissando. It's definitely more fun than the Beltry. Not more fun than the Mahler hammer though, so it's gonna go right there. Ah, yes, the bongos. These require a good amount of technique to play. And then, oh, we got the conga. The conga is definitely harder than the bongos. There's a lot of conga techniques. That stuff is really difficult. I'm gonna put it up here at number 3. I gotta start moving things down. We're gonna have 10 instruments per category, except for the F will just have 9 because there's 69 of these. Oh, let's go with my favorite one next, the tenor drums. These are awesome. We gotta play everything that snare drummers can play, so they're gonna go in the front, because we also gotta play it while moving around the drums. All right, let's do a mallet percussion instrument next. We'll go with the glockenspiel. Every mallet percussion instrument, these are pretty tough, because you gotta, know the notes and key signatures and all that stuff. Ah, boom whackers, yes. You probably played these as a small child, but there are actual like boom whacker ensembles and they're pretty legit. So for that reason, the boom whackers are going to go up here. Break drum, very epic instrument, but very, very easy to play. Kabasa. This is one that people don't realize how hard it is. It's really difficult to get the rhythms right on a kabasa. All right, let's jump around a little bit. I don't like going in order all the time. I like keeping it fresh and interesting. Ooh, let's do the whirlies. Yes, these are a percussion instrument. The song Angels in the Architecture starts out with an epic whirly solo. I played that piece in wind ensemble one year, and I remember in the concert, the one dude in our section, we got the whirly going, and he freaking clunked it on the music stand, so kind of ruined the effect. These are definitely really fun, very easy though. I'm gonna put it below the Mahler hammer. The shaker, another very underrated instrument. It is quite difficult to get, rhythmic accuracy with this one. Okay, let's do marimba next. Marimba is one of the most common ones you gotta practice all the time if you're going to school for classical music. I'm gonna put it in front of the snare drum. I think marimba is tougher than snare. Gong is an awesome instrument, but very, very easy to play. You just hit it really hard with the mallet. You do have to warm it up though before playing it. Make sure you do that. And there's also playing zones on it. So for that, we're gonna put it in front of the Mahler hammer and in front of the agogo bells. Ah, the cajon. This is basically like the traveling man's compact drum set here.
I love
another
those.
popular one.
I
We
totally
always need
want
more
a cajon.
cowbell.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, hi there.
Oh, and Darian was
cowbell.
worried
Everyone
about the
meet
cowbell.
my lovely
He did not forget the
girlfriend,
cowbell.
Cowbell. So yeah, of course, the cowbell is the greatest instrument that there is. It's gonna go all the way in the number 1 spot. Hey, what's that? What's that over there? Cannon. Yes, this is a percussion instrument. In fact, we play that here at Marine Barracks, Washington.
Can't do AC/DC without him.
Alright, so the cannon with its sheer power is going to assert itself all the way up into the top row for now. Castanets are a fun instrument, but they're quite easy. Hold on, did I not put timpani into here? Okay, there we go. I just added the timpani in. Oh man, that screws everything up. I wanted 69 instruments, now there's 70. Alright, well anyways, timpani are gonna go all the way to the top.
How dare you forget
yes, I think they're
timpani.
harder than tenors. You thought I was gonna keep tenors at the top, didn't you? Well, no. The timpani are harder. Rain stick. You sound like rain being played in a stick, and you are very simple. Going in last. Similar to the rain stick is the ocean drum, which sounds like an ocean inside a drum. Wow, fancy. Vibraphone. Pretty much a marimba, but with a pedal, and the pedal is a game changer. And also, vibraphone is used a lot in jazz, and yeah, jazz is very difficult to figure out. So yeah, this is gonna be harder than marimba. Not harder than tenors, though. Tenors are really hard. Ratchet, incredibly easy. Chicken is probably the fan favorite one, but it's very, 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 very easy to play. Like, literally anyone can just pick it up and play it. Blue Cocky thinks that the chicken should be higher up. Okay, fine, I'll move you in front of the ratchet, alright?
You want to be known as the chicken choker?
I don't think he's happy. So claves, there is a technique to playing the clave, and you also have to know your clave patterns. The cuica. This one's actually quite difficult to play. Usually it takes people a while to figure out how to get that friction on there, so we're gonna put that kinda high. Not too high though. Cymbals, there is a lot of technique to playing the cymbals, especially if you are doing marching style cymbals. There's a whole lot of stuff, and you're also gonna get like bruises. Yes, pain is a factor in this grading system, so it's gonna go... I'll put it right there. Ah, the djembe. This also requires a lot of technique to play. I don't think as much as conga. I think djembe is harder than bongos though, so we'll put it right there. Ah, the full drum
We have a djembe
kit.
over Joey's house too.
This one, yeah, this is definitely the hardest one. Okay, we are halfway done here. That is 35 different instruments. I am liking this order, kind of. I think the cowbell is too low. Oh, hi! Yeah, that was an error, a mistake. Yeah, see, this is going all the way to number 1. Yep, you're the best. I love my cowbell so much that I'm gonna put it way over here off the screen so that I can't see what I'm doing. But yeah, I think cowbell can actually be like over here, and maybe castanets too. It looks kind of okay so far. I'll probably like adjust all this at the end, but let's keep going here. So we got the finger cymbals, which in this picture, that is not the way you want to play them. Usually you just have one of them and play it with a triangle beater. Yeah, there's a little bit of technique with that. Usually the parts are insanely simple, so we'll put it right above the chicken. Flexitone is one of the most fun ones, but it's also very easy. Actually, you kind of need like a good single stroke roll sorter to play it. Crystal glasses, yes, this is a percussion instrument too. Anyone who's ever been out to a fancy dinner place, if you haven't tried doing this on your wine glass, then you're not living your life. Yeah, it takes a minute to figure out, but once you do figure it out, then that's kind of all there is to it. Ah, the good old Gok block. All you marching band kids probably hate this instrument. Super articulate, very effective, but also incredibly easy to play. All you have to do is hit it with a drumstick. Ooh, the tongue drum. Yes, I recently did this in a video. The hardest part is just like finding where the notes are, because they're in like a circular pattern, not really in order. Guiro, this one actually takes quite a bit of technique, and you do need rhythmic accuracy to play this one, so we will put that right up here. Trash can. This is a percussion instrument too. If you go to any city, anywhere in the world, you'll probably see some street drummer playing on a bunch of trash cans. I guess I'll put it here, because, I mean, I guess you don't need technique to figure it out. Sure, let's go with that. Also, I'm realizing this was kind of a stupid way to do this list, because I have to keep moving all this crap all over the place. Like 90% of the suspended cymbal parts is just a roll with yarn mallets. Very easy stuff, very simple. It's gonna go... yeah, we'll go right there. Oh, we got the hi-hat, which is 2 cymbals, and you operate it with your foot. This can be very difficult. I know some of these are redundant, like the drum kit has a hi-hat, and drum kit also has snare drums, and we got tom-toms coming up too. Like I said, I picked the 69 best ones, well, 70 because I forgot the timpani. But honestly, most of these can also be played on the drum kit. Handbells actually require some technique to play, and if you've ever seen a handbell choir, these guys are legit. It's very complicated stuff. Ah, the good old kalimba. This one is also very hard to find out where the notes are. It's like in a side-to-side pattern. You can also tune this to different scales, and you might get blisters on your thumbs from playing it too much, which is why we're gonna put this all the way up here. Slapstick parts are always real easy, but this is another very fun one, so the fun factor is gonna put it up a little bit. Now you also got the whip, which this is different than the slapstick. And it sounds exactly the same as the slapstick, but it is more fun to do a whipping motion, which is why it's gonna go in front of the slapstick. Ah yes, the lion's roar. This one is a very interesting one. Oh, here's the cuica. Okay, yeah, it's gonna go in front of the cuica because lion's roar sounds cooler than cuica. Now we got the log drum. This is a fun one,
lion
but
roar
very
sounds
easy
the
one.
coolest.
That's gonna go down here. Maracas. These are another one that people underestimate how hard they are. Really have to work out the technique to articulate individual strokes with these. So because of that, they're gonna go up sort of high, not that high though. Marching machine. Yes, this one is also a very fun one. Can be hard for like small children. I remember I had to play one of these in like 6th grade and it was kind of big and awkward. Yeah, the xylophone is a very tough one. Harder than the glockenspiel, not harder than the bass drum though. The wood block. Also quite easy to figure out how to play this one. I'm thinking the slide whistle is like too high up. I think it should be over here in front of the chicken. Parts are usually written very easy for the taiko drum, at least the ones that I've been exposed to. I'm sure if somebody in like a different country was making this with different experiences in music, this would probably be all kinds of different. So I do encourage anyone to make their own version of this list. That would be very interesting to see. The mark tree, usually referred to as the incorrect name. These are not wind chimes. These are what wind chimes are. This is a mark tree. Now, is the mark tree harder than the bell tree? That's the real question here. Shekere is gonna go rototoms, one of the most interesting ways to tune a drum. And of course the tom-toms, also usually associated on a drum set. There's also concert toms. Sleigh bells get you in that Christmas spirit. There is a technique to playing sleigh bells. Ah, the good old steel pan. These ones are quite complicated, anyone who's ever tried to play one. Yeah, I gotta put steel pan in front of handbells. The wind machine, this is another very fun one. I think it's a little harder than the rain stick. Thunder sheet, another very fun one to play, but another very easy one to play. Temple blocks are pretty much wood blocks, but there's like a bunch of them, so it's definitely gonna beat out the wood block. I'd put it above most of these. I think I have the cowbell too high up. All right, let me just finish putting these in and I'm gonna like make adjustments to everything. Timbales, these can be a very, very tricky instrument. Yeah, I think I should beat out the trash can and probably the shaker and the guiro and the maracas. The waterphone, yes, this is a percussion instrument. Basically makes all the crazy horror sounds in every scary movie you've ever seen. The thing is, I've never actually played this instrument. I've only watched other people play it. Professional waterphone players, leave a comment, let me know how hard the waterphone is. Oh, then we got the water gong right here. I don't know that this is a water gong in this photo, it's just a gong chilling by the water. It's definitely gonna be harder than the gong. Where's the gong? Gong's right here. I don't think it's harder than hi-hat though, we'll put it right there. Vibra slap, this is another very fun one and another very easy one. It's gonna go over here somewhere. And then we got the tubular bells, also known as chimes. I think this might be the only one of these instruments that has a height requirement. And then we have this image here, which you've probably been wondering the whole time what it is. Yes, that is a blurred out peepee.
Glenn,
Peepee
you
is
can
an
play the
instrument.
tubular
Go
bell.
practice. But more commonly, the body. Body is a percussion instrument, all right? Just go watch Stomp. I guess this could be as difficult as you want to make it. I usually make it really difficult. Is the peepee more fun to play than the Mahler hammer? That's the real question. Okay, so this is my percussion tier list of 69 plus 1 instruments, and I kinda absolutely hate this, so I'm gonna sit here in absolute silence with no background music and make adjustments.
Because that's the way it should be done.
Oh, it's interesting to see his adjustments. Get the chicken up there.
2 hours later.
Okay, here is the updated and completed percussion list. But do you agree with this list? You probably don't, so pose a comment with what you think should be higher or lower.
Surprisingly, I
Hopefully
agree
this
with a
video
lot
was
of it.
moderately educational and entertaining. If it was, make sure that you click that... Whoops.
I have helicopters buzzing the house.
Click that subscribe button and ring that Liberty Bell and click that like button. And also consider buying a custom t-shirt such as this one. I will leave that link in the description. And have a good morning.
Big Gox. Oh, I like him. I would have loved hanging out with him, like in high school band. That would have got me into high school band.
And all those different instruments. Now the chicken that they have up at the mountain is called Rhythm Rooster. So you got there seem to be commonly found throughout music for some reason, but you'll find chickens all over.
People like to choke them.
It's a musical instrument after all.
Oh, although the lion roar, I'm glad they got that in there.
And the thunder sheet, and the rain stick.
Yeah, I would totally do a thunder sheet.
Related to the saw. Loose.
And he did not ignore the cannon. Like that is an actual important percussive instrument in certain pieces.
And you got the hydrophone in there too.
The 1812 overture, like use the cannon, awesome.
And the Mahler hammer, huh?
And for those about to rock, AC/DC.
Exactly. Can't do songs without it.
And the timpani, forgetting that and then realizing it, that's like that's one of the ones that like should never forget your timpani.
Mm-hmm. It's important. You got to get them in there.
It's my favorite non-band drum that like I like to incorporate where I can to give modern music more of a classical sound. Sometimes I'll throw a little timpani in here and there just to give pop and rock some life.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Definitely good ways to use all that stuff, using sounds creatively. I had one that one day I came home from driving out somewhere and it was just pouring rain, and as I pulled in at the house, I just like realized that it sounded really cool just sitting in the car, and I didn't want to get out in the rain anyway. So while I was sitting in the car, I just popped open the phone, did some recording, and I just recorded the sound of like the rain pouring down on the car for like a minute and a half or whatever. But I could use that as something in the background behind a song. Just little things like that you hear throughout, as you're walking around. You can just record little bits of it and use it later.
Oh, and it can be pleasing to hear the tempo of nature.
Oh yeah. And in this case, it was raining so hard, and it was actually sheeting where like, you would hear like a gust of wind blow more rain against the car than normal. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's how it was here yesterday. We had a freak storm come through.
Mm-hmm. You said snow though, huh?
It turned into snow because temperature dropped back to like January levels.
Wow. Yeah, we got down. I mean, it was like in the 50s today here, but I mean, it was beautiful out and mid 50s. So not particularly cold, but it wasn't quite up to like the other day. It was up to like almost 70. So it was getting even nicer.
Well, for anybody that's out in the like Midwest in that area, next couple of days, some freaky weather coming. So just keep your ears and eyes open. Pay attention, because a lot of tornado warnings and violent weather is what they called it.
And I'd heard some that were happening, not even like during the day. That was one thing that was kind of unusual. But a twister happening at night, that's ridiculous, because you wouldn't even be able to see it coming.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to see it coming.
Yeah. But it also in the different areas where they, where they weren't necessarily getting tornadoes in the past, like different areas will be susceptible to them now also. With the atmosphere holding more moisture, it's able to get more supercharged. So storms can get more powerful and happen more often. Crazy.
I feel supercharged after this rhythm night. Like,
Yeah, that's right.
the rhythm got me. I understand what Gloria Estefan was saying.
Yeah. Some good picks in there for sure. Some very educational stuff. We always appreciate people coming out and joining us.
Oh, and I love that journey through all those percussion instruments at EMC Productions.
Mhm.
You are my drummer go-to guy.
Indeed. Ooh, tornadoes at night all the time. No good.
Yeah.
No good.
Yeah, well, just pay attention to your area, especially if you're in like the Midwest and all of that, because that's like going straight up.
No good. Severe weather happening. Just be ready. Be prepared.
If you got some awesome sounds, do like Glenn, sample them.
Record it. And use them. Use them for good. Put them into a song.
Use all music for good.
But I think that's what pretty much wrap it up for us for tonight. Appreciate everybody coming out, like we said. Joining us on Talking Shh I.T. Glenn and Tony.
It was nice to look at percussion from a different perspective. Like, we've done drum nights in the past, but this was a good review of rhythm and where percussion falls in it.
Yeah, and again, the Waltz one, very good. The Bossa Nova, very good. I like those. I like the one going over all the different patterns, all the different rhythms. You know, getting a feel for all of those in there. The timing of it, going over that kind of stuff is important because you get those kind of basic rhythms all built in, baked in, and then any music that you do from that point forward just kind of falls into those categories, and you can more easily, you know, oh, this one's similar to that beat or this beat, so you can kind of figure out how to more, more accurately put together a song in that style.
You write me a waltz and I'll write you a bossa nova.
Nice.
And we'll be back next Thursday to dance.
And the mouse will dance when the cat will play.
Oh, and Uni can bring his chicken.
Sure. The Uni chicken showing up. Now, that chicken would, of course, have to have a unicorn horn on it. So figure that out. You could use
that's where the sound comes out.
Yeah, exactly. And then you could put little, make it like a flute where it's got a horn, doo, 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 different notes.
Oh, then I'll be impressed.
Get the fancy chicken. But we'll catch you guys next week. Thanks for coming out. And we'll see you.
Thanks for the jam, guys.
Ambient noise, yeah.
So now you're grabbing some band lab clips.
Now for me that would also be something where I would use like volume automation and like bring that from the bottom, like bring it in and then bring it back out.
And these are the kinds of sounds you can stretch. With this AI, like stretching it actually can be cool.
Oh, that was perfect for the interlude too.
Ends it right in the right
I
spot.
didn't even notice 40. I didn't even realize the texture faded out at the interlude until it happened. I'm like, wait a minute.
Sometimes you just, it was just meant to be that way.